This is Tea and Tice, the Great British Wrestling podcast for Great British Wrestling, as featured on bodyslam.net and the Jonas Podcasting Network. I am your host, the Great British Otaku, Mr. Andrew Moore, Andy to most, joined as always by the man, Big Daddy Dan, Daniel Allen, just Dan for short. How are we doing, Dan?
I'm in a great mood. I have had a delicious home cooked chili by my fantastic wife. I am sat here chatting to you and looking forward to discussing some great British wrestling.
And of course, your women's roster won.
And of course, my women's roster won because it was the better roster.
It
No,
was
your
not
roster was good.
It was certainly not a better roster, but I did not set it for as long as I was meant to set it for. So we only got like 9 people who voted on it.
Well, your roster was good, but mine was better because I had planned specific matches that I wanted and I knew specific people I wanted to see wrestle. And you did steal some of the ones that I really wanted, but overall, I'm very happy with the variety that I got.
You just had biased votes with like Artemis. I'm voting Big Daddy Dan because he had my partner. Bias.
That's a very sensible reason to vote.
It is a very sensible reason to vote. I wish I'd said it for longer like I was supposed to bloody do. But I very much had a lot of fun actually doing those rosters. And I think they were both amazing rosters, and we had a couple of comments on each roster saying how great those actual rosters were from the women themselves, which is always thankful and grateful to see. Nice interaction. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. And last week it was all about the ladies. We were celebrating International Women's Day, so there is a lot of news and announcements, some of which we didn't cover last week, and some of which, of course, the most update and latest news going on the wrestling scene today. We've also got a couple of reviews. Rev Pro UK, both of their shows. So we're going to be talking about the Live in Sheffield show, as well as the Raw deal in Stevenage, as well as the attendance levels for both shows. We also got plenty of previews for what's coming up in the next 2 weeks. There is some incredible wrestling happening all around the country and in Europe and further afield. There's some stuff happening in Japan and America. It's great. Wrestling is great. Don't you think so, Dan?
I love me some wrestling. And let's start off with one of the wrestlers that I do love, Michael Oku, and he is going on tour in America.
Yeah, we mentioned it a couple of weeks ago. We mentioned the fact that he was off we knew he was going to be at West Coast Pro in around the end of March, beginning of April show. Period. And we now know at least 4 shows over a period of a week where Michael Oku will be featured across the United, LA and Seattle, really. But why don't you kick it off, Dan? Or not. On the 30th of March, he is going to be taking part in the Mark Hitchcock Memorial Show, which is part of the WrestleCon lineup, and he'll be facing Impact Wrestling champion Josh Alexander. Did I tell you I once shared a lift with Josh Alexander?
You did not tell me you once shared a lift with Josh Alexander.
I'm pretty sure I do. It was when we were at South Pro. I mentioned the fact that he was staying at my hotel. Pretty surreal when you kind of open up the door and there's big old Josh.
Yes, because you mentioned that you sort of like were just coming up to his nipple height.
Yes. But yeah, that's going to be an incredible match. I'm not sure if the Impact Wrestling Championship is on the line. Be interesting if it was. I know they do put up the title on in other promotions, as they did with South Pro. On the 31st of March, he's going to be at Prestige Wrestling, where he's going to be taking on Titus Alexander. I've heard some rumors that this young man is a very talented wrestler. He had an extremely good match with Will Ospreay last year. And it's kind of like the go-to boy in Prestige. So a big match up here for Michael Oku.
But not as big as April the 7th at West Coast Pro.
Yeah, he's going to be renewing his rivalry with Speedball Mike Bailey in San Francisco. That's on the 7th of April, as I mentioned. They have competed against each other before a few
I've
different
seen them.
occasions. You've seen them, yep. Part of the British J Cup.
Yep.
But they all, Speedball Mike Bailey did challenge Michael Oku for the Cruiserweight Championship in a losing effort. So no doubt he'll be out for a little bit of revenge. And then finally, April 8th, he is at Defy Wrestling, where he will be facing Cody Chun in Seattle.
Now, I've not heard of Cody Chun. Have you heard of Cody Chun?
I'm pretty sure I've seen Cody Chun on a Defy show.
Cool. I shall look forward to that because it's somebody new for me.
I think it used to be Demand Progress used to have Defy shows.
They
every
did.
now and then, yeah. So I think I did want to see him on that. So yeah, interesting. Good luck to Michael Oku. As you say, I know that, and we know Chris Jericho's already a big fan of him. I'm sure Josh Alexander's going to be a big fan of him after he's wrestled, and then of course Speedball White Bailey. It could be a bidding war for Michael Oku. Where do you think Oku would best fit? AEW, WWE, or Impact Wrestling, and say maybe Impact and / MLW, where he can sort of kind of work both.
I think he needs to Impact first because I think he can be a bigger fish in a smaller pond at Impact. And I don't think he would immediately be given the opportunity he needs, even if he went straight to Ring of Honor for AEW. I think he could do with Impact. I think Impact would treat him well, and he would get the notoriety within the United States to then move on. Use Impact as a stepping stone for a year or two, and then move on to an even bigger promotion.
I mean, finally, he's put on some size recently. He has increased in mass over the last year. So maybe he's preparing to get over to America. I'm sure if they book him right, I mean, in Rev Pro, which we'll talk about later, he is probably one of the most protected booked in Rev Pro UK. And as I say, I'm going to be talking much about that in a little bit later. So we'll leave that for now.
Let's talk about. I know I mentioned it before. His interview that he did on the Jericho podcast, he came across so well. He's so eloquent, so well spoken. He can interview. He can really interview well, and I think he's got a huge, huge future.
He can deliver in passionate promos as well. We certainly seen that in Rev Pro UK. Now let's talk about Progress Wrestling and how Progress Wrestling management obviously watched last week's show.
Oh, definitely. I'm sure Mr. McAteer was paying close attention.
It's obvious that they must have been watching our show last week, because last week, whilst discussing the whole Cara Noir Spike Trivet rivalry, I mentioned the fact that they hadn't had a proper one-on-one match, and that the best way to do it now would be to put it in a cage match. And lo and behold, they have booked the cage match, and with Spike Trivet basically using in a reason what I said of the fact that he needs to be able to beat him one-on-one with no interference.
It's also been the best video promos that Progress have ever done, in my humble opinion. The build-up over the last couple of days with the release of the videos has been brilliant, and the imagery of the vulture on the bird cage with the swan inside is just brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. Well done, Progress.
Indeed, I expect my check in the mail. But Spike Trivet, yeah, he's so good in those videos, isn't he?
Yeah, and I said it before and I'll say it again. I think he actually looks better than Cara Noir with the makeup on.
I think one of the best things about Spike Trivet and the Cara Noir whole rivalry and everything is Cara Noir really hasn't had to say anything And I know that's kind of his game, but even when he was Tom Dawkins, he hasn't really had to say anything. Spike has been able to say it all.
Yeah.
And it's, it's been brilliant. It's been one of the best rivalries.
And it's really reminded me what a great wrestler Spike is.
Yes. Yeah, he really is. He's just an amazing wrestler, which is why I said I wanted to see that one-on-one match between him and Cara Noir without the bells and whistles, without all the interference, to literally see these two go. Because, yeah, these guys are incredible wrestlers, and it's...
It's been a full year-long storyline to build to a cage match, which is how it should be.
Yeah, absolutely. But I think it's going to be... Yeah, and that's so that's the show, chapter 151, chapter 151, Heavy Metal, of course. April 23rd at the Electric Ballroom, Camden, London. I'm a little bit of me to like part, because I know I'm going to Doncaster the night before to watch 1PW. So it'd be wonder if I can maybe just keep going south and go check out get myself a hotel in Stevenage. It's close enough. But yeah, it's gonna be.
My sofa's always free, Andy. My sofa is always free.
A sofa. Do you know how old I am?
Too old for sleeping on sofas.
Too old to be sleeping on sofas is how old I am. And that's all I'm gonna say on that. Now, it hasn't been announced yet by either company, but Progress and WXW are planning a 3-day Germany tour.
Ooh, I hear you've got some gossip there.
They are going to be in Hamburg, Oberhausen, and Freiburg.
Wow, that's good gossip. Well done.
And it's going to be in, if I'm right, I think it's going to be in August.
Wow.
It might be August, it may be September. It's I know it's going to happen before WXW's what's it, the World Tag Team Festival.
Yeah.
So I can't give you the exact dates, I cannot remember, but
I mean, that is great journalism there. Well done. Progress and WXW have been having crossover stars recently, and this could lead to a wonderful invasion program if that's the way they choose to go.
Yeah, I believe, from what I know, is they're going to be double shows, but all shows. So it's going to be WXW and Progress stars, all on one show.
I wonder if that means there's the potential for a WXW Live and Progress on Demand crossover.
Yeah, it's very much what it's going to be. And of course, WXW Germany are going to be part of the Super Strong Style 16 carat weekend. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to the 16 carat weekend. I'm definitely going to be there, and I'm definitely going to be at the Germany show as well. The WXW. So, as I say, I was very impressed with my time. I will not go for the 3 days because, as I say, it's actually traveling all across Germany, north to south. So I'll probably just do one show, probably the Oberhausen show, because I kind of know my way around Oberhausen now.
That's really cool.
So maybe do that. One Progress, I just mentioned them. I'm going to be there 22nd, and we now know a second championship qualifier match for the 1PW World Championship, because we know it's going to be Will Ospreay versus Bobby Fish, or is it? I'm a bit worried because Will Ospreay's been injured recently.
Yeah, he's knackered his shoulder, hasn't he?
Yeah, and there's no word on how long or if he's going to be out, because he dropped out the New Japan Cup after having a hellacious battle with Mark Davis, United Empire, part of Aussie Open, and Mark Davis is replacing Will Ospreay in that. I'm fingers crossed Will Ospreay will recover and will be back, because I still have not seen Will Ospreay in action. And it's bugging me. But of course, I'm very much worried whether he will be Revolution Rumble.
Yeah. Well, One Pro Wrestling, I'm very excited because Martin Stone is set to appear and take on Cara Noir. Now, I love Martin Stone. I really enjoyed the work he did in the tag team with Oney Lorcan in NXT. I thought he was absolutely brilliant as Danny Burch. I am really excited for that.
Yeah, very much so. It's going to be a great match. I'm envisioning Cara Noir versus Will Ospreay final.
Yeah, it's got to be, really, hasn't it?
I think that's got to be the one, yeah, for me. There's a match you may enjoy.
I may or I may not, I'll be honest with you. Mark Haskins is taking on another Extreme icon. And this will be Ulf Herman, who announced that his last match that he had at 1PW was his last match. But he's coming back to take on Mark Haskins. I think this will be crazy because Mark Haskins does not have a bad match. So we'll see what kind of bells and whistles Ulf pulls out. Everybody loves his entrance. Everyone loves his fire breathing. We shall see what the match turns into.
Indeed, I'm sure it will. Mark Haskins has managed to carry who he's needed to so far, so I'm sure he can do it again.
And also, just quickly, it's not just Mark. In 1PW, Vicky is as big a part of this show as Mark. She is phenomenal. Her interviews are amazing. When she got involved with Rob Van Dam's other half, whose name has completely escaped me, and I feel really bad for that. She was great, and yeah, Vicky Haskins, very cool.
Indeed. So, Fro, you dropped in for a little while during the premiere of their YouTube. They're putting their show out for free. You got to see that Ian Skinner match again. I mean, not Ian Skinner. Leon Slater versus Endakara.
Wow,
It was even better than I actually remember the match. I've actually adjusted my notes because originally I gave it 4.25. I've adjusted my notes. I'm giving it 4.5 now. It's gone up 2.5. Well, it was a seriously good match.
I'm sat here with Amy at the moment, my wife, and when I was watching this match, I kept rewinding it and showing Amy these moves that were being done, and the high flying and the insane over the corner turnbuckle dive. And yeah, we were impressed.
But it was Endakara and that technical wrestling as well that really brought a new side to Leon. We got to see him fight against that technical style as well as just the literal speed of the way chain submission wrestling is. And yeah, big fan of Endakara. That match with Leon Slater was great. But we're not talking about that anymore. Go check it out. It's free on YouTube.
You'd be crazy not to.
Exactly. But they've announced they are introducing a Commonwealth Championship, which they announced last week.
It was Commonwealth Week last week as well, which it was Commonwealth Week this week, because I went to a very formal raising of the Commonwealth Peace flag, which I'm sure won't be flown above the ring at Soft Pro.
No, but it is the Commonwealth Championship, and they've announced it that Man Like Doris versus Talon Jr. Will be a championship qualifier match, as will Joe Wade versus Kelly Six and Leon Slater versus Kenny Williams.
Nice. I feel very sorry for Joe Wade because I think the collective will make themselves known in that match.
Yeah, I think they'll make sure that. But then, yeah, actually, I like this idea. So we just mentioned on the other side, we've got Man Like Doris and Talon Jr. So Man Like Doris win. On the other side, you've got Leon Slater, Kenny Williams. Leon Slater win. You've got the 0-1-2-1. Obviously, both of them get done by the collective. Then they maybe bring in the other 0-1-2-1 members in Dan Maloney and Amari, and then we get a bit of gang warfare in soft pro.
Getting a bit Larry. Talking about getting a bit Larry, the banter bus.
Yes, the banter bus.
Danny Proper and Tom Thelwell. Their interviews were a little bit blue, weren't they?
Yeah, it was a bit
A little bit sweary.
A little bit, just a little bit. It was a good segment. It set up this future match, which is happening at Warpath on the 8th of April, along with all these Commonwealth Championship qualifying matches. So it's Danny Proper and Tom Farewell versus the Right Way, which is Thatcher Wright and his head of security, Minister of Defense, or cabinet something. Big Jez, who is
it was
big.
very funny during the YouTube channel. Ian Skinner was very impressed with this Thatcher Wright, who he'd never seen before, but didn't really like him, would never be associated with such a person.
Never. Of course, we will actually hear from Ian Skinner on the 8th of April at Warpath, and it looks set to be another good show. It's going to be a smaller show than their last. I think they're only running 200 tickets for the show. So if you want tickets, you need to get them sorted. I need to get in contact with the guys because, yeah, I'm thinking it's a show I would like to go to because I know North NCL was sold out again. So can't go north. So I might have to go. I think I'd like to go to Soft Pro again because I really enjoyed my time last time, and Manchester was nice.
I've never been to Manchester.
It's okay.
I drove through it when I picked you up to go up to Lancashire Pro Wrestling.
Yeah. I usually go through it when I go over to Liverpool for TNT Extreme. So.
My wife lived there for a while.
Where Soft Pro is kind of in the University District of Manchester, so it's in quite a nice area. The prices for the bar are ridiculous, though.
Don't wear a Lizzie Evo t-shirt.
Don't wear a Lizzie Evo t-shirt. That's a good point. Let's move on to Pro Wrestling Eve, who are announcing that they are bringing Spanish superstar, the Red Lion, Sarah Leon, for their 7th of April show. That's no Moonsault at the Dome in London. As I say, I mentioned last week, I haven't seen much of Sarah Leon myself. I do know a colleague of mine who Spanish, was very, very impressed with her. He calls her one of the 4 pillars of Spanish wrestling at the moment, along with Carlos Roma, Noah Striker, and Joey Sky.
Well, we know that Pro Wrestling Eve always pull out the best from across the world. So if they've booked Sarah Leon, they know something that we don't yet.
Indeed. I think it's good to see Pro Wrestling Eve pulling in Europe as well, because obviously they bring a lot of people in from the United States, and they also typically bring in a lot of Japanese wrestlers in. So it's good to see him bringing in some European talent. And as I say, Sarah Leon, from what I've heard, is a very good performer. So check her out. Attack Pro Wrestling. They're back. Attack are back. And they've announced another incredible match for their 8th of March return show in Cardiff. Connor Mills versus Mark Haskins.
That's going to be a very, very good match because technically both of those guys are fantastic.
Yeah. These guys, they are both known for being able to get to the air when needed. Extremely technical wrestlers, can strike with the best of them. So this is going to be a very, 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 very exciting matchup, one that I'm very much looking forward to. Kanji will unfortunately not be back from injury in time for the Cardiff return, which I've got the wrong date for. Let me get the right. So instead of facing Emerson Jane, it will now be Rain Leverkusen. And this is on the 2nd of April on night 2. And the Connor Mills.
However,
yep, sorry.
Rain Leverkusen is injured at the moment as well, so I don't know if she'll be back in time.
Hopefully she'll be back in time, because that's who they've announced as the replacement. When they've only just announced that one. They announced it yesterday, so she must be most likely going to be back in time, I guess. I've just seen one other match that's been announced that I did miss, which is Subculture, Mark Andrews and Danny Luna versus the Dastardly Shitwolves, Lycos Gym.
Oh, that'll be good, actually. That'll be really good.
So that's on night 2, April 2nd in Cardiff, and the Connor Mills match is on night 1, April 1st.
Oh, I cannot
Cardiff.
wait to see Danny Luna kicking the crap out of Kid Lycos too. That has actually made me properly smile ahead of the match. I'm well up for that one.
Can you imagine Kid Lycos 2 trying to brain bust the Danny Luna, and Danny Luna just picking him up and just throwing him across the...
Yes, I can. This is what I'm looking forward to.
Absolutely. I think that's going to be... It's great to see Attack back, of course. Very well known. So I'm assuming Pete Dunne has handed the reins back to Mark Andrews and Eddie Dennis. Somewhat close to them, Pro Wrestling Chaos in Bristol. They've announced Kingdom of Chaos on the 15th of April in Bristol, and Billy Hayes is set to have his toughest match to date. He is set to face former NXT UK superstar Rampage Brown. Tate Mayfair, so it's Rampage Brown.
Yeah, I mean, I love Rampage Brown. As you know, I'm a massive fan of Rampage Brown. I love Billy Hayes. They both fight in a very different style, and I think it is going to be kind of like watching Vega versus Zangief.
It should be a really interesting encounter. Great to see Rampage Brown making his way across the country. Be a good match. I think it'd be an exciting match. There are 2 other big matches that have been announced. One of them is Joseph Connors versus Danny Jones.
Yes, please.
They're just going to slap and beat the crap out of each other, aren't they, really? Because that's the type of wrestlers they are. It's going to be... You're going to see a proper lock-up. None of that dance. No dance-offs. No silliness. These 2 are just going to get down and get dirty, and it's going to be a great match. Also announced is Tate Mayfair's Tateness is Greatness versus Wild Boar Mike Hitchman.
Tate is getting everywhere.
Yeah, he really is. I know he's extremely hot in Chaos, so I know Flash Morgan Webster is a big fan of Tate. So yeah, it's going to be another great show for Pro Wrestling Chaos. I believe have their own demand service.
Right. I'm very excited with the next bit of news, and I'm going to jump on that if you don't mind. TNT Extreme have announced several more names for Effie's Big Gay Brunch on the 12th of May in Liverpool. The Rainbow Battle Royal is just looking so good. The Rainbow Rumble. Tony Wright. If you've not seen Tony Wright wrestle, you've missed out. Sassy Bear Clarence. I am so happy Sassy Bear Clarence is in this. I didn't know how far across the UK that had got in touch with the Sass, and I love Sassy Bear Clarence. He's So much fun. Commander Stephanie Sterling will be there. Camille Hansen will also be there in the Rainbow Rumble. It's going to be awesome. And the She-Wolves, my favourite, somebody I tagged in the best women's roster on Tea and Tights podcast. They will be defending the Women's Tag Team Championships at Big Gay Brunch. What are you thinking of this lineup, Andy?
It's very, very good. They've also announced just very recently another young lady who made your roster, the incredible Scouse Mouse powerhouse, Hudzilla, Harley Hudson, and
Hot but not bothered.
Hot but not bothered, and Prince Pele. Sam Pele, who I unfortunately do not know, but I'm sure TNT are on the dial. I'm sure they know. I'm sure it's going to be a fun rumble. We also know that Jordan Oliver will be facing Leon Slater at TNT Ignition's High Voltage on the 17th of June. And they've also announced that Callum Newman will be competing at their Going Off Big Time show, also on the 17th of June. I'm picturing Callum Newman versus Jordan Oliver.
I would not mind seeing it.
Can you imagine being able to see Leon Slater versus Jordan Oliver in the morning, and then see Leon Slater versus Callum Newman? I mean, Jordan Oliver versus, or even Leon Slater versus Callum Newman, or Jordan Oliver versus Callum Newman in the evening.
It's a bit of a treat, really, isn't it?
It'll be an absolute treat. And so Callum Newman, that's going to be his first return to TNT Extreme since Project X. So go check that out. Did we mention that Effie's Big Gay Brunch is on the 12th of May? If not, we just did. Wrestle Carnival. Two of the UK's brightest young talents are set to compete one-on-one for the very first time at their Wrestle Carnival second anniversary show at the 30th of July at the HMV Empire in Coventry, as Leon Slater will face George Lydon.
I mean, I've seen George Lydon quite a few times. I've seen Leon Slater. That is a match that is going to be high-flying and very swift.
Indeed. And depending on how long Leon Slater sticks around in the UK wrestling scene, a rivalry that will start at Wrestle Carnival and will surely go on for quite some time in the UK wrestling scene. As I say, very much two of the UK's brightest young talents. There have been changes made to the Clash of Carnival Clash at the Castle. No, it is Clash at the Carnival on the 30th of April. Charles Crowley not being available anymore. Sam Bailey will be the one to face Spike Trivet.
That will be a great match. Sam Bailey, we know, is a trainer of so many good wrestlers and really knows his stuff inside out, back to front and upside down. Spike, we've already discussed, but I'm really excited to find out where Crowley is going, because it has been announced that he is going somewhere international, which is why he's not available.
Possibly back to Canada. Slam Wrestling. He's
Is it in the news who he's wrestling in France yet? Have you mentioned that in the news yet?
It's not in the news, but it's part of my previews, actually, because it's France and it's this weekend.
That's cool. We'll wait for that one.
We've definitely got to talk about that.
But yeah,
I think Charles Crowley's probably going off to Canada once again for Smash Wrestling. I know he is. He just lost the championship to Psycho Mike at the 16-carat gold, which Shigehiro Irie won, by the way.
Yeah, I mean,
he was not among my favorites to win the tournament, but when I look back and I look at the history of Shigehiro Irie in WXW, maybe he should have been part of my favorites. I mean, he's been certainly a body, or he's certainly made up the numbers in 16 carat over the last 3 years. So
look at them. Look at what he can do. Look at the size of the man. He is a great, great person to have holding your belt and possibly holding your belt hostage.
Certainly. I have watched the first night of 16 carat, but I'm not going to be reviewing it this week. We're going to be talking about, I probably might just do a whole one of its own, because I'll watch everything, including the showcases, including the ambitions, and just do this whole package of WXW at one point. Might be the best way to do it. But anyway, back to the UK and over to Wales. Slam Masters Wrestling, following their sold-out show this weekend, Slam Masters announced they will be back to the Banking Hall for Back to the Banking Hall 2 on Sunday the 1st of October. So hopefully, I'm assuming that'll be another great show. This is one hell of a match coming up at Rise Cabaret. Do you want to go for it?
Callum Newman will compete in a number one contenders match at Fights and Delights on the 18th of April. His opponent will be making a Rise Cabaret debut. His opponent is the OJMO. Michael Oku versus Callum Newman.
It's going to be a tasty matchup. Fights and Delights, 18th of April. Yeah, Callum Newman, Michael Oku. Or Riot Cabaret about to do what we've been asking promotions out there to do for the last, since January. And that is push Callum Newman to the moon. So hopefully that'll be the case. Moving on to New Generation Wrestling, NGW. New Generation are returning to Hull on the 23rd of June, where they'll be celebrating their 15th anniversary.
That's impressive.
It's very impressive.
Really
15
is.
years
Well done.
strong.
Well done.
One of the best promotions, certainly in the North, for a long, long time. As we say, 15 years.
And one of the up-and-coming companies in the South have announced some great matches for their 30th of April show. I am talking about Coliseum Pro Wrestling. Levi Muir versus Shaw Samuels. Ronnie Knox versus Amira. And the 8-7 Big Wavy Roy Johnson and Alexander Roth versus KM Lane and Sami Sabine. Yeah,
going to be another great show for Coliseum Pro. I'm interested in Levi Muir versus Shaw Samuels. That's some big, meaty wrestling right there. Shaw Samuels versus Levi Muir.
Yeah, I've been lucky to see quite a bit of Levi Muir because he's a regular for UBW, and he is a great. He's having him and Roy Johnson on the show. I don't think there's going to be any baby oil left anywhere.
No baby oil in London. Roy Johnson and Levi Muir in town.
Yeah, they are both just so jacked and stacked. It's I feel emasculated walking into a room when they're there.
Indeed. Southwest Wrestling SWW have announced a triple header weekend in April. 3 shows over Friday the 14th. The Queen Isn't Dead in Cheltenham. Saturday the 15th in Tewkesbury. And then finally on Sunday the 16th, they will be in Bristol. And they've got a lineup and a half as well for each one of these shows.
Yeah. I can't. Oh, yes, there it is. On the 14th, Priscilla versus Lucia Lee, Jetta versus LA Taylor, and Charlie Morgan versus Tonga. Do you want to take the 15th?
The 15th, I do. Where are we going? Chantel Jordan and Millie McKenzie versus Ivy and Zizi, another person you signed last week. In fact, you actually signed Ivy as well.
I did.
So it's one of your tag teams versus one of mine.
Oh, we'll see how this goes.
I did draft Chantel Jordan and Millie McKenzie. So
you did.
That's interesting. That's quite. Also in action, Buzzsaw Bronson versus Toby Valentine versus JD Knight. Ripper Reed versus Digger Bain. Zach Knight and RKJ versus Joel Redman and Eddie Ryan. Axel Carter versus James Mason. And Chris Bronson versus Niwa.
That's going to be brilliant. On the 16th, we have a returning Chris Ridgway versus Scott Oberman. Axel Carter versus Harrison Bennett. Tonga versus Nadia Sapphire. Nico Angelo versus Tate Mayfair versus Sid Oakley. And Jetta and Charlie Morgan versus Danny Luna and L.A. Taylor. Great lineup.
Absolutely fantastic lineup. That Chris Ridgway, Scott Oberman, that's very interesting. Because I'm not sure if Oberman considers himself a member of Northwest Strong anymore.
We shall find out. Will he be wearing the zip up top?
Indeed. This is where I need a beard. I can't grow one. But yeah, it should be an absolutely fantastic match. I know they do release a lot of their matches free on YouTube, so that'll be one that I do keep an eye out for. I'll tell you that. United Wrestling UK in Oxford, one of your faves.
Yep, I'm hoping to go along for this one. Memes will be defending his title against Charles Crowley. Memes is very upset with this because the last time he faced Crowley, it was in a loser leaves, so he's not a happy man. This is on day 9, Future Proof, in Oxford on the 9th of April. They're also set to name the contender as Danny Black and Truman Roswell compete to become #1 contender for whoever comes out on top. Danny Black and Truman Roswell. That is going to be a good match.
Indeed. Truman, what I need to know, what we all need to know, what the world needs to know, Truman Roswell, is are the CPF truly close personal friends? Okay.
We shall see.
You'll have to let us know, Truman. Or is Danny Black truly the kid without fear? We'll have to see what conspiracies Truman Roswell thinks up for Danny Black. I look forward to it.
I think
we
I
need to get Truman on the show so I can talk conspiracies with him.
I think I'm going to have to wear a black suit and black sunglasses to try and put him off halfway through.
Men in Black.
North Wrestling NCL. They have announced 2 of the first round matches for the NCL Cup on the 8th of April with Riho versus Kid Lycos 2 and Luke Jacobs versus Will Cruz, plus ultra-violent action as Clint Margera challenges Rory Coyle for the ultra-violent championships. Those 2 do know how to have a very, very hard match. Boisterous Behaviour will also be defending the tag team championships against RKJ and Zach Knight.
That's going to be a hell of a match. The
Yes.
Knights versus Leo Slater and Mandalite Doris. But I would just like to take this moment to send my condolences to the Lycos family with Rio obviously set to kill poor Kid Lycos too. May he rest in peace. Although actually he died at Darth Lad Emporium recently, so
he got decapitated, I believe.
He literally got decapitated. I think I might let you watch that one.
Yeah, I know you're not keen on that one. Luke Jacobs versus Will Cruz, though, that is going to be
beefy match.
Yeah.
I think it's good to do a match like that because it takes one of them out of the early running. So, yeah. And whilst they're both at their full fitness as well, I'm still liking Will Cruz for the tournament, though.
Yeah, you reckon Will Cruz for the tournament?
Will Cruz for the tournament, yeah.
I'm going to go against that. I'm going to go Rio.
Yeah, I can see Rio. British Wrestling Revolution, BWR, they've announced Riot Rumble for the 6th of May in Grimsby, which will feature the titular match, the Riot Rumble, where 20 people will compete for a chance to challenge for gold at the upcoming 6th anniversary. And I know that they have now announced that Shaw Samuels will be one of the participants in the Riot Rumble. Oi, oi! Beast. Go on, Shah. UBW.
They have announced 4 matches ahead of Stotfold Slamboree, which will be on the 1st of April in Stotfold. Darcy Stone will take on Ronnie Knox. Cy Gregory will take on Truman Roswell. Josh Spicer will take on Murdoch. And the Odyssey, friends of the show, will take on the Armada. Shauna Reed and Paul Hubris. Also, just while we're on the subject of the Odyssey, please, guys, pay attention to one of our sister podcasts on the Johners Podcasting Network. Johners is interviewing the Odyssey in the next few days, so keep your eyes open for that interview. It'll be a really good one.
I'm sure it will be. Yeah, so for those who may not know, Stotfold is a small little village in Hertfordshire.
Approximately 1.5 miles from where I live.
There we go. There's a lot of UK stars that are going to be competing this weekend for Pro Wrestling Noah.
Yeah, including one of my favourites.
There he goes. There he goes.
Saxon Huxley is set for a Pro Wrestling Nerd debut as he teams with Hidoki Suzuki against Muhammad Yon and Yoshoki Inaura. I know I've butchered that. I'm sorry.
Yeah, very, very sorry. I'm not going to attempt it either. I know it's Hideki Suzuki, former NXT trainer, of course. So yeah, him and Huxley. I think Huxley would do so well in Japan because we used to call him the British Brutus of Brody.
Yeah.
So I
he
think
should do brilliantly.
I think he can fit in really well with that type of thing going for him. Chris Ridgway is set to team with Hayata, and they will be challenging for the GHC Junior Heavyweight Tag Team Championships, which are currently held by Ogawa and Alita. Now, there's obviously stuff going on because the last time I knew, Ridgway was teaming with Ogawa and was junior heavyweight champion, tag team champions alongside Ogawa. They, of course, lost those titles. I think they've now kicked Ogawa out of the team. And Chris Ridgway recently has been beating the crap out of both Ogawa and Alita. And he, in an interview I saw, he is sick and tired of getting Alita's blood all over himself.
Nice. Also, another friend of the show, Jack Morris, is going to be taking part. He's teaming with Anthony Green as they face Marufuji and Hijo del Dr. Wagner Jr.
Yes, the son of Dr. Wagner Jr. So he is Dr. Wagner Jr. Yes.
Or I'm not taking the mickey. I think there is actually Dr. Wagner Jr. I think that's why they have a video.
Yeah, I think there actually is. I know they do the same with La Parca as well. There's La Parca Jr. and Elhilio del La Parca as well. So,
yeah.
Yeah, good to see British stars taking over Pro Wrestling Noah. Of course, Jack Morris was recently had a few big matches for Rev Pro UK and is now returning for another tour. Have to get Jack Morris back on the show because obviously we had him on the show just before he went on his first tour for Noah. So it'd be good to get him back on the show where he can really talk to him about being in Noah and what he's been up to. So I think that'll be an interesting little thing to do. But as I mentioned, he did spend this last weekend wrestling for Rev Pro UK. And I watched both of those shows this weekend.
That's because you have an incredible commitment to British wrestling, and I bow down to your commitment to British wrestling, and I will watch more, I promise, when I'm not actually there in person.
Yeah, so Rev Pro UK have got the Rev Pro On Demand app. You can watch most of their shows live these days via the app on the day of the show. If you can't make it to the show, it is 6:59. And they're running, around about 4 shows a month at the moment. It's well worth it, especially as I mentioned, you can get the live shows as well and watch it live. And
they're bloody good shows.
Yeah, the on-demand, the app on the phone is actually really, really good because obviously being able to just watch Rev Pro UK on my phone or my tablet is good. I've got one of those magnifying things that you put your phone down and it makes it all big. So I can.
What other companies can you get with Rev Pro on demand?
They have none.
It is
They
just Rev Pro.
It is just Rev Pro UK. At the moment, we don't know whether, because I know on their previous one, they did have a couple of different promotions running on their on-demand service. But at the moment, they've got the Southside Wrestling catalogue.
Mm-hmm.
So you can go back and watch some Southside Wrestling Entertainment. But it's just Rev Pro UK. But when you, as I say, when you're doing 4 shows, 5 shows a month, I mean, this month they're doing 6 shows in March, which is almost ridiculous, which is fantastic. I love to see it. I like the fact that Rev Pro UK are running more often. It does cause a problem, which I'll talk about in the Sheffield show, because they're trying to book storyline wrestling, so sometimes they don't want to announce the card for the following week because they need things to play out before they can announce the matches that they have planned. So then this can, as I mentioned, affect. But the Rev Pro UK Raw deal in Stevenage looked absolutely fantastic. It looked massively busy, 800 to 1,000 people there quite easily. The stage looked fantastic. Rev Pro UK looked so good at the Gordon Craig Theatre. It's just
I'm going to
comparable.
say something controversial here.
What's that?
Aesthetically, I think it looks better in Stevenage than it does at York Hall.
I can see where you're coming from a
It
little
looks more
bit.
professional.
It looks darker. It looks, yeah. Oh, yeah. I can see
Or
where you're
does it
coming
look
from.
more American?
Yeah. As I
Oh,
say, the whole setup looks fantastic, comparable to what WXW do, comparable to what South Pro did for their show. It's a fantastic setup. Anyway, I actually watched this live. I only got in a bit late, so I missed the first half of the JJ Gale versus Yota Tsuji match. I caught the second up, the end of it, and it looked a very good match. At which JJ Gale picked up another big victory over Yota Tsuji, and JJ Gale will now be in the Revolution Rumble on the 26th of March. He has taken Yota Tsuji's place. But however, Yota Tsuji will have a chance to get his place back, and we'll talk about that just shortly. But you also had Connor Mills versus DK Cooper. Excellent match. For me, it really shows that if TK Cooper really wanted it, he could have a phenomenal singles run, I think. And his match with Connor Mills here really showed that. Chantel Jordan and Mercedes Blaze had a very well timed match. They had plenty of time to work. It was a good, strong match, but Chantel Jordan came out on top. Gabe Kidd and Leon Slater defeated Michael Oku and Cameron Kai, which was probably the match of the night for me. I thought they had a really, really good match. RKJ defeated Callum Newman. This don't think landed as well as either of them would have liked to.
no.
I don't think so. I don't think Callum Newman got as much in as I'd like to have seen him, and they really probably need to put a cruiserweight title on him soon, because I'm going to talk about his match with Gabe Kidd, which he had the next fight, which was fantastic.
I think
But
there's going to be a problem with that.
he looks as big, if not a little bit bigger, than RKJ.
That's what the problem is.
And he looks very comparable to Gabe Kidd. That's what I'm saying. You need to put he's a big junior, and I think you need to put a junior title on him soon, because he's going to be a fully fledged heavyweight soon. That young lad, he's a big boy, and which kind of I think for me, because the whole story was, well, was RKJ's stronger and bigger, he's the heavyweight. But I'm looking at that, but it kind of, you're like, Callum Newman's about as big.
Speaking about heavyweights, tell me about Dan Maloney versus Jack Morris.
Excellent match. Two phenomenal athletes, and they really showed it in this match. Great grappling, great scrap, great fighting. Really, really enjoyable match. Dan Maloney came out on top. In the main event, you had Robbie X versus the returning Rich Swann. It was supposed to be Rich Swann and Lance Archer at this show. Unfortunately, Lance Archer, due to flights, wasn't able to make either of the shows. But Rich Swann made up for it, and he had a great match for Robbie X for the Cruiserweight Championship. Now let's talk about live in Sheffield. Set up again, it looked good. They didn't really show the crowd, which is probably good because from what I heard, there was only roughly about 100 odd people there.
Well, that's very sad for the people that didn't make it, because by the look of it, it was a very good show. Because I'm looking at the scores you've given it, and bearing in mind what we'll discuss at the end of the reason the scores drop, it was a high-scoring card.
It was raw deal overall. I'm going to give 3.5, but as I say, live in Sheffield, Connor Mills versus Yota Tsuji opened up with just a brilliant wrestling match. Big win for Connor Mills. Yota Tsuji continues to lose. On his way out, managed to just slap poor Joshua James in the face as he went back to the thing. Great match. Robbie X versus Cameron Kai was excellent. Cameron Kai is super impressive for his age, 17 years old. He's absolutely jacked, and he gave Robbie X a great match here. Jack Morris had a really good match with Will Caven. Callum Newman and Gabriel Kidd. Now, this match was brilliant. As I say, whether Callum Newman wasn't quite as happy with his performance, even Andy Quildan on commentary kind of mentioned the fact that Callum maybe wasn't quite as happy with his performance the other night, but they put on one hell of a match. And the fact that at points Callum Newman was being able to stand toe to toe with Gabriel Kidd, and the fact that he doesn't look out of size when he's looking at Gabriel Kidd, which is why I say need to put a junior title on him soon. But this was excellent. I did like at one point, I thought that you were supposed to be the next big superstar. All I see is a shit Will Ospreay, which lit a fire under Callum Newman, of course, and it was really good.
Was there a little bit of a chant from the crowd at that point?
No, they didn't decide to because Callum Newman, they were cheering for Callum Newman. They weren't going to call him a shit Will Ospreay because they call Will Ospreay a shit Callum Newman.
Yeah.
But yeah, great match. Really, really, really great match. Callum Newman, Gabe Kidd absolutely tore the house down and got my match of the night for this one. RKJ versus Zach Knight. They've must have fought a million times. They know how to fight each other, and they showed it exactly in this match. Dan Maloney and Michael Oku put on just an uber strong match with Dan Maloney picking up the win. Of course, it was due to the fact that Michael Oku hurt his arm on his frog splash that he'd hit, but came down heavy on his arms, to give him a buyout because Michael Oku always has to look strong, even in defeat. It was a good match. And then Rich Swann defeated Leon Slater in another good match. Maybe a bit too much dancing, but still a great match.
Never have too much dancing in a Rich Swann match.
Yeah. Overall, I would have definitely given this show 3.75, but I am deducting.
But wait.
Yeah, I am deducting 0.5 off the show, and it's crashing down to 3.25. Do you know why?
I
Didn't
do.
book a women's match.
No women's match again. What are you thinking? Rev Pro, wake up. There are some amazing female talent. You booked Chantel Morris and Mercedes Blaze. They were brilliant. Why on earth aren't you putting on more women's matches? Chantel Jordan.
Indeed. Sorry, yeah. You're in Sheffield. Let's see. Tonga's in the local vicinity. Alexis Falcon's
Ivy.
in the local facility. Ivy, Harley Hudson, Lizzie Evo. You know, there's some incredible females in that northwest, sorry. And yeah, always very disappointing to once again I see Rev Pro UK. I mean, don't get me wrong, if they ran shows every week inside using there wouldn't be many women left for other shows, but they do need to start bloody booking them. And it's ridiculous that because I do consider Rev Pro UK to be the number one promotion. They do run the most amount of shows. They do run coherent storylines throughout. They have an extremely good on-demand service. You're able to watch shows live on your phone if you can't attend the shows in person. And it's really disappointing when we're not seeing it. And we do need I don't care whether people want to call it a performance. When I say Rev Pro UK need to book more women, I truly believe it. Rev Pro UK need to book more women. I will support women's wrestling throughout.
Yeah, and I want to see it.
Yeah. Simple as. I'm not asking shows to be 50-50. I'm not. It's I'm asking shows to be 70-30, 80-20 at minimum. If you've got 5 matches on, I expect at least one of those matches to be a women's match. If you're running 6 matches, I expect 2 of those matches to be women's matches. If you're running 7 matches, I expect you to be running at least 3 female women's matches. If you're running 8, again, 3 women's matches. It's ridiculous.
I agree.
And I don't care if somebody wants to call it a performance. It's no bloody performance. It's just the way it is.
My wife's just pointed something really valid out. It's 52% of the population. Now, come on. People want to see these matches.
Yes. However, I will point out the reason I say it shouldn't be 50-50 is because we don't have a 50-50 split between men and women in wrestling. In wrestling, you're probably looking at 7-3, 8-2 ratio. We have a lot of women's wrestlers, but we also have a lot of men, and the ratio.
And
we
why
need to be
that?
equal on the ratio.
And why is that? We need to have more opportunities for women's wrestlers.
Yeah.
Yeah. Said it before, we'll say it again. Watch British wrestling. Watch all British wrestling. Watch women's British wrestling. Before we go on to the previews, I want to mention one show that we didn't mention in the announcements at the beginning. There is a really cool wrestling / theatre / entertainment show coming up. On Thursday, the 13th of April, Wrestling with History presents The Rise and Fall of Julius Caesar. Have you heard of this?
I have not.
Okay, so this is happening at the Pleasance Theatre in London. Wrestling with History presents The Rise and Fall of Julius Caesar, bringing history to life in an exciting, hilarious, never-before-seen evening of in-ring adventures. Taking historical events from well-known to the obscure, a team of wrestlers retell tales in the ring. Who would win in a fight between George and the top 4 dragons of global history? Who would win in a Roman soldier versus a caveman? Expect to cheer, boo, and be educated in this new concept in family entertainment that is the brainchild of TK Cooper and Damon Mosser and wrestling producer Sam West from Wrestling Resurgence. I think this looks great.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Very, 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 very interesting indeed.
So, yeah, Wrestling with History presents.
Indeed. And so what's happening this weekend? There's a bloody lot happening this weekend, and it's all over the place. Starting on Friday, we'll start with Scotland. ICW's wrestling experience in Scotland, matches such as Molly Spartan versus Daisy Jenkins, Landon Riney versus Kez Evans, Jason Reed versus Martin McAllister, the young team Logan Smith and Jimmy Pierce versus Arcade Violence, AC Anderson and Jake Lawless, BT Guns versus the Supreme Ryan Richards, and Sheik El Sham versus Luke Cairo.
OTT have Scrapomania 7 Night 1. in Wolverhampton, and it's a big lineup. Omari, Millie McKenzie, and Lee Hunter are taking on Danny Cross, Session Moth Martina, and LJ Cleary with Santino Marella as the special guest referee.
Although less said about Santino, the better. Pac will be facing Big Damo, because John Moxley was supposed to be at these shows, but got pulled for him for the AEW house shows. So they gave him Pac instead. But you know, don't complain. Pac.
Apparently, John Moxley is pissed off about it.
Yeah, I heard, and good for John Moxley. I know he's a big fan of Joe Crabtree and OTT. No, we're not always the biggest fans of them, but it is what it is. The draw, Adam Max said Charlie Sterling versus Leon Slater and Michael Oku.
Nice. Eddie Kingston, who I love, versus Man Like DeReese.
You know, I've never got a love for Kingston.
I think, oh God, this is going to either annoy a hell of a lot of people on. I kind of see him as the Mick Foley of this generation, but Mick Foley in his ECW days. He can talk and he can brawl. He may not be the best technical wrestler, but neither was Foley, and he would not argue that. I really love Eddie Kingston. I just think he's
really great on the mic. I love a good Eddie Kingston promo, but I'm just never a big fan of his in-ring work. But you know, everyone's a fan of somebody and not a fan of others.
Did you see his match with Tomohiro Ishii at AEW at all?
I did not.
It's very good.
I'm sure they slapped the crap out of each other. Kid Lycos versus Robbie X. Sammy D versus Trent Seven. And Dan Maloney versus the American Wolf, Davey Richards.
Good card. Enjoy that if you're near Birmingham.
Indeed, and the action continues on the 18th on Saturday this weekend. It is Scrapomania 7 Night 2, this time in Dublin. A few of the matches announced. LJ Cleary versus Danny Cross. Pac versus Leon Slater versus Robbie X versus Davey Richards. That's just going to be silly good. Sammy D versus Omari, and a champion versus champion match. Davy Keitel versus Session Moth Martina for the Women's Championship, and Big Damo versus Eddie Kingston.
You know when you're playing at the arcade and you've got your air hockey? There's that moment where all the little air hockey pucks are fired on at the same time and you've got a million things going on at once. That's going to be Pac versus Leon Slater versus Robbie X versus Davey Richards.
Yeah, that's going to be insanely good. That's full of just incredible talent. So yeah, as you mentioned, she's going to fly and bounce around the ring in sensational fashion.
Indeed.
What else is going on Saturday?
Phenomenal Elite Wrestling, my friends, are taking part in Dirty Deeds in Stratford-upon-Avon. Jack Selstrom will take on Big Jim Diehard for the Heavyweight Championship. TJ Sky and Jason Joshua and Aluna Blue will team up to take on Joey Scott, Lance Rivera, and a new female member of the Ryan Taylor Agency. Martin Kirby will stake on Six. Smashing Mike versus Carl Kingsley. Ivy is going to be taking on ZZ. And the entitled Brady Phillips and Riley Nova will be taking on Big Man Inc., Adam Bolt, and Jackie T. Now, unfortunately, Chase Alexander is injured. He is not going to be able to participate in his announced match. So, Joseph Connors has put out that he wants an opponent, and Ryan Taylor has put forward Franco Fate. So it's going to be Joseph Connors versus Franco Fate, and that should be a really good match.
Indeed. And also Rain Leverkusen is also out, but she is going to be replaced by Lucy Sky in her match with Alexis Falcon, who will be making her debut. Big debut for DW.
Yeah.
Good things happening at Phenomenal Elite Wrestling. Our friends in UKPW have got Collision Course in Canterbury. Simon Miller versus Truman Roswell. Again, I need to know the conspiracy theories regarding Simon Miller. Nina Samuels versus Ronnie Knox. Alexander Roth versus Fabio Romano. The teens with attitude, the Power Rangers themselves, Mark True and Kieran Lacey versus the meme team of Adonis Payne and Memes.
Now, this is what I was chatting about earlier. Ritz Wrestling in France. Connor Mills versus Aguil Blanc. Rivalty versus Lycos Jim. Kira Chimera versus Amel in a match would be amazing. Jack Sansnom versus Vince Greenleaf. And Charles Crowley is taking on Popoff. Now, would you like to tell everybody a fact about Popoff if they don't know?
Popoff is over a 60-year veteran in wrestling.
60 years, not 60 years, which means he is 80
years old.
Charles Crowley versus an 80-year-old man. Now, I don't think we're quite going to have what happened when Gypsy Joe, at a similar age, took on New Jack, but I do think there might be a slight advantage here to Crowley. However, with 60 years of experience, you're going to think there's going to be some kind of good way to take on.
Hey, Popoff won his last match out. So there you go. It's going to be quite exciting. That Connor Mills and Gil Blanc match, though, that's going to be extremely exciting. That's going to be a high flying, kick crapping match, and it's going to be for the Reese Championship. I didn't think we were going to have time to do it, but I want to try and do it maybe next week. Is the watch along for Tristan Archer versus Will Ospreay at Reese's last show, which is free on YouTube.
I will go out of my way to watch that.
We might try and do a watch along to that one next weekend. Sticking in Europe, on the Saturday, you can go to Barcelona to see Lucha Libre Barcelona, where you'll see Maya Matthews challenging Seri Leon for a championship, Sunshine Machine challenging the BCM Blacklist for a championship. Michael Oku is set to appear, and a match between Hades and Artur Adamov.
Ooh, I've just lost my screen, so if you'd like to do the next one as well.
On to Sunday, where Rev Pro UK will be in action on the 19th. We have Jordan Breaks versus Michael Oku. Great to see Jordan Breaks making his debut for Rev Pro UK. We have Connor Mills versus Robbie X for the Cruiserweight Championship. Is it his time? I don't think it's quite his time yet, but I would love to see Connor Mills versus Robbie X. Danny Luna will be defending her women's championship against Sky Svitson. So they're going to renew their rivalry, which is going to be a great match. They've also announced there'll be a tournament for the contenders to win a spot in the Revolution Rumble. But Remy Atenji is currently injured, so Yota Tsuji will be taking his place in this. So he has a chance to get himself back in this tournament. He faces David Francisco. And then Samuel Hawks will face Joshua James. I'm assuming it's going to be Yota Tsuji versus Joshua James in the final, because they've been kind of building that storyline in amongst these matches where Yota Tsuji keeps losing and taking it out on poor Joshua James.
No Mercy Wrestling, sweep the leg. James Ellis versus Joseph Connors. The Devil's Rejects, MJ Grayson and Big Van Veska take on Oliver Sutton and a mystery partner. Shane Hooker takes on Nico Angelo. Will Cruz versus Jay Joshua in a battle of the big men. Adam Carter versus Kenny Mentra versus Kelly Six. Rain Leverkusen versus Riho versus Aluna Blue. That's going to be great. Bevan versus the Wild Boar will also be great. And RC Chaos will be on commentary. There will be lots more going on, and No Mercy Wrestling's Sweep the Leg.
Yeah, the two matches that really stand out and matches I would love to see. Shane Hooker versus Nico Angelo, which I do believe is going to be for the TNT Ultra X Championship. I do believe Nico Angelo is putting his TNT Ultra X Championship on the line. Should be a great match, high flying match. But Will Cruz versus Jay Joshua, complete opposite. It's going to be an absolute bruiser battering match. But these guys are both extremely skilled. Will Cruz is skilled in Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, and Jay Joshua is skilled in both kickboxing and amateur freestyle wrestling. So that's a really interesting match, and yeah, I might go out of my way to try and watch that No Mercy show. Sweep the leg. Title championship are in action with Pour Some Sugar on It, which is in Huddersfield. You got Rampage Brown challenging Ace Matthews for the title championship. Sugar Dunkerton will be making his return to title championship, and he'll be facing Tate Mayfair's tag team action as Joe Kessler and James Drake team up to face Amir Jordan and Harry Singh, Simon Miller and Memes, and Money Mountain. Natalie Sykes will be defending her women's championship against Harley Hudson, and Scotty Rourke will be facing Vusic in a submission match.
Also, we have WXW versus APC Catch. Tristan Archer will take on Kuro. Ahura takes on Christianum. Shigehiro Irie versus Aguil Blanc. Peter Tahani versus R1 Pro Gamer. And Amel versus Tiago Montero. We also have Metahan versus Rick Salem. And Norman Harris will take on Ravage and Mecca in a three-way dance.
Yeah, so that's Fight for Paris 3. So this is the third time WXW and APC Catch in France will be doing another joint show. It's a good weekend for France, actually. You can go check out Reese Wrestling and then go check out WXW versus APC Catch. Yeah. Not a bad weekend. OTT is still in action. They've got obviously a very busy weekend. The show after Mania, which is in Belfast, I've only got 3 matches that seem to be announced. LJ Cleary versus Davey Richards. Bonesaw versus Eddie Kingston. And the Kings of the North, which will be a new Kings of the North member, Dunk. Something. I think I need to find out who this gentleman is, and Damien Corvin, and they'll be facing whoever are the tag team champions between the draw, Adam Maxted and Charlie Sterling, or Leon Slater and Michael Oku.
Now, I've got to say, Bonesaw versus Eddie Kingston really appeals to me, because this isn't going to be, no offense to either man, this isn't going to be a fast-paced match.
Ain't going to be a pretty match.
But I bet it's going to tell a story.
Going to slap. Going to be hard-hitting. As I say, it's going to be ugly wrestling. Brute wrestling. And the great action doesn't stop this weekend. There is plenty of amazing action next weekend. So let me just bring you a few of these shows coming up. On Saturday the 25th, you got Hammerlock. Locked in Kent, Zaya Brookside versus Mercedes Blaze, Paul Tracy versus Eddie Kingston, and a triple threat match, which I'm looking forward to. Reese and Rogan with Magic taking on the CPF boys of Newman, Lando, and Danny Black.
I think you got Eddie Kingston on the brain, my friend. Paul Tracy is taking on Eddie Dennis.
He is. Yeah, you're right. Eddie Dennis, not Kingston.
Now I want to see Eddie Dennis versus Eddie Kingston.
Ooh, that would be a very interesting matchup.
Now I want to see that. Resurgence Wrestling, the Moneywood Blondes are taking on the Rockers. That should be good.
Do you know who are the Rockers?
No, tell me who the Rockers are.
They're the Greedy Souls.
Does that mean somebody's going to be wearing a wig? God, I hope it means someone's
I just really want to see the Greedy Souls in full Rockers get up, Marty Jennings and Shawn Michaels.
Charles Crowley will be taking on Mike Bird. Millie McKenzie will be against Sky Smithson. Gideon Gray will take on Rain Leverkusen. The 0-1,
2-1.
Darius Amari and Maloney will take on Spike Trevay, Harry Singh, and Tate Mayfairs. Oh, Tate and Spike in a tag team. I like that. Mad Kurt will take on Alexis Falcon and Lizzie Evo. Mad Kurt's going to get murdered again. And yeah, it's just going to be great, isn't it?
Yeah, like Alexis Falcon defending her Art House Championship. Will she be the first Art House champion be able to retain her title? Getting Rain Leverkusen making their resurgence debuts. But I do like the faction, as you mentioned, Spike Trevay, Harry Singh, and Tate Mayfairs. Be interested in to see if they can carry it on to maybe a couple of other promotions. Carrying on, if you go north, you can go to Wrestling in Newcastle, where you can see Dean Allmark put on a wrestling clinic alongside Brady Phillips. Lana Austin versus Ruby Roberts, HT Drake versus Adam Bolt, Isaac North versus Stoker, Paulie C versus Mr. Tim Strange, R Kid versus Mark Mathers, and the landed gentry of Theo Knox and Bentry versus Glasgow Grindhouse, Luke King, Sharp, and Krieger.
Full Force Wrestling is on the 25th, and the champion, Jason Jacobs, will be defending against Doug Williams. I'm very excited for this.
I've heard they've got a really good announcer for the show.
They've got quite a well-known announcer for the show. Quite well known in my own head. Yes, I'm going to be announcing for that one. Also on that show, Ruby and Echo Reed versus Dominita, which should be rather special. We also have the Temple of Light versus the Blockbusters. So yeah, it's going to be great. Joey Scott will be in action, as will friend of the show, Big Daddy Unicorn.
Good old Big Daddy Unicorn. Go check out our interview with Jason Joshua.
Also, Hunter will be taking on Steve Savage.
Back north, you can go to True Grit Wrestling in Leeds, where you'll see Ivy versus Tonga versus Harley Hudson versus Natalie Sykes versus Rio versus Gia Adams. That's a hell of a lineup. Rebecca Resner and Zizi, again, two of your draftees, versus Aurora Tethers and Melissa Fierce. Crash Boat versus Leon Slater and Jet Marshall, and Misery Business, Joe Wade and Alan Kay. Of course, Crash Boat is Jack Bandicoot and Jake Silver. You can just about see the t-shirt there. Crash Boat. Yeah, Crash Boat. Love Crash Boat. B.A. Rose versus Scotty Rourke. Lou Nixon versus Nathan Blacklist. Commander Sterling versus Priscilla. Kevin Lloyd versus Chris Ridgway in a match I really would love to see. And Serico versus James Mason. But again, can I mention how much I would love to see that Kev Lloyd versus Chris Ridgway match?
I think we need to message True Grit and say, please, can we have a copy of that tape? Sunday the 26th, Full Force Wrestling will be presenting G-Force in Redditch. It will feature Ruby, Damian Black, Jordan Sparks, Joey Scott, Steve Savage, Big Daddy Unicorn, and more.
On Sunday the 26th, you can also go to Rev Pro UK's Revolution Rumble at York Hall. Will Ospreay possibly in action against Dan Maloney and possibly in the Revolution Rumble itself. Zack Sabre Jr. versus Michael Oku. RKJ challenges the Great Okan for the Rev Pro British Heavyweight Championship. And of course, the Revolution Rumble, which Big Damo has just been announced for. Degree Souls are going to be entrants as well. JJ Gale, Francesco Akira, and Eddie Dennis is going to be in the Rumble itself, and has said that if he doesn't win the Rumble, he will never wrestle for Rev Pro UK again.
And where's that match taking? Where is that show taking place?
That's your call.
So that means there'll be this opportunity for a 5-star match then.
There will definitely be an opportunity for Will Dan Maloney get a 5-star match against Will Ospreay. Although Zack Sabre Jr. versus Michael Oku could be a 5-star match.
It could well be.
I might put more money on that one being a 5-star match than Will Ospreay Maloney match. Don't know why.
We shall see. We shall see.
Very interesting. You can also go up to Glasgow to see ICW Fight Club.
You can, but I have again lost my screen, so you're going to have to tell people what's happening.
The KOE will be defending their championships against the likely lads of Ian Skinner and Charles Weiss. Go on, Skinner. Win that ICW Tag Team Championship. It's about time you're draped in gold. The Outlaw Stevie James versus Kenny Williams. Jason Reed versus Shaman A in what should be a very, very good match. Moxie Malone versus Angel Hayes. I know a couple of other matches have just been announced as well, so let me just bring them up. Saqib Ali will be defending the Zero G Championship against Eddie Castle. And Levi versus Theodorus.
Nice.
Indeed. I think there's some great look. There's great wrestling going on across the country. We talk about it every time. Just the amount of news, as you can tell, the amount of stuff that we've been sat here for an hour and a half talking about loads of incredible British wrestling. So do you know what I'm about to say?
I think you're going to say.
I'm going to say, go support British wrestling, go support independent wrestling, go support European wrestling, and remember, support podcasts that support independent wrestling, and don't feed the trolls.